coming this evening. I'd like to start by talking about a program that we'll have next month before I go into my usual introduction for the O'Neill 100 series here. Tonight, it's my pleasure to announce the 2016 Rose Dorothea Award Ceremony, which will be held on September the 16th of this year. The Rose Dorothea honors a writer who has made an impact in the very fiber of Provincetown. The ceremony and reception are part of a fundraising effort to retire a renovation bond of over $350,000 that is the responsibility of the Board of Library Trustees. The 2016 Rose Dorothea Award will be presented to author and activist Josephine Del Deo, who fought like her life depended on it to keep the Heritage Museum within the buildings of the town of Provincetown. It is our duty to honor her vision and keep this building as a cultural center for all. Now, she is actually fighting for her life in the hospital, and it is the wish of the Del Deo family that Josephine be honored this September 16th, no matter what her physical condition, and the Provincetown Public Library will honor that request. Tickets are $75, which includes drinks and appetizers. The award reception will be held on Friday, September the 16th at the Provincetown Public Library at 7 p.m. And now, welcome all to the August edition of the O'Neill 100, a year-long series of readings curated and directed by Provincetown's Stuard M. Derrick. As always, I'd like to start by saying thank you for attending during a busy time of year here in town. Your support and your enthusiasm is what makes enriching programming such as this possible at the Provincetown Public Library. Tonight will feature a presentation by O'Neill scholar Mr. Stephen F. Bloom and two plays, Isle and The Rope. As always, here to tell you more about our program for the evening, I'd like to introduce Director and Curator Stuard M. Derrick.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you all for coming. I'm going to be very quick so we can get on with this. You're in for an intense evening. These are two intense plays, so you grab onto the side of your seat. Isle, the first play, as Stephen will talk about, is based on an actual event. I mean, two people who lived in Provincetown, and the rope is also it's sort of like a biblical take on the prodigal son. They're not pleasant plays, but then it's Eugene O'Neill, so what do you expect? I just wanted to say thank you for coming, and I just wanted to make a couple announcements before we start. There will be an intermission, and after Isle, by the way, is the New England Yankee pronunciation of oil. And we will be doing Isle, then have an intermission, and then we will come back with The Rope. At intermission and after the show is over, I would suggest, and heartily, we'll have an actor's box for all of our actors. They're not paid, they're not compensated in any way for their performances, and if you could see kindly to helping them with their gas or with just going back and forth to Provincetown on transport, it would be greatly appreciated. I just wanted to bring up two things. We last night, I didn't know how many people who saw the play last night. Well, as you know, it was just great. It was Jay Critchley's world premiere of Bound East for Easter Rebellion, and it was a mashup, as Jay says, of Eugene O'Neill in 1916 and his play that debuted here in Provincetown. And that same summer, well actually spring, there was the great Irish Easter Rebellion on the steps of the Dublin Post Office led by Padraig Pearse. And it was sold out last night in the middle of Carnival. People couldn't even get in to the point that Michael Cunningham came in last minute and just sat on the floor and got the very last space. People were actually outside all the way to the street. But it evinces just how Eugene O'Neill has such an influence on this town and how he continues to be such an influence in the world of literature and the world of drama, and particularly with the heritage of this town. Oh, and by the way, one of the actors is here tonight who played Podrick. We'll run over there, run Shao. Take a bow. Tom Thompson, who played Eugene, isn't here, but I think he's coming shortly. In any event, let's get on with tonight. Our speaker tonight is Stephen F. Bloom. He is the chairman of the board of directors of the International Eugene O'Neill Society. He is the author of The Student Companion to Eugene O'Neill and editor of Critical Insights, Eugene O'Neill, published by EBSCO's Salem Press in 2013. He wrote the chapter on O'Neill that appears in the Oxford Handbook of American Drama, published in 2014. Steve is currently the chairman of the board of directors of the Eugene O'Neill Society, where he has served since 2000. He was president of the society from 2006 to 2007, and he was the book review editor of the Eugene O'Neill Review from 1988 until 2004. He has published numerous articles and reviews on O'Neill in the Eugene O'Neill Review and elsewhere, and he has spoken on O'Neill on many professional conferences and public forums, including at the Huntington Theater Company in Boston, the Trinity Repertory Company in Providence, other Boston area theaters, and the Tampa Repertory Theater in Florida. Steve received his doctorate in English and American Literature from Brandeis University, and he is currently the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean of Undergraduate Education and Professor of English at LaSalle College in Newton, Massachusetts. Before I introduce Steve, though, I would like to beg your attention for one more announcement. As we all know, as part of the O'Neill celebrations, the Tennessee Williams Festival, the big annual international festival, which happens at the end of September, is also going to be honoring O'Neill as well as Williams, and talk about the way Provincetown affected these two monuments of American drama. And I'm very happy to have here tonight the executive director of the Tennessee Williams Festival, Jeff Hall-Flavin, and I just want him to speak just very briefly before we continue.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. I'll be brief. Tennessee Williams and Eugene O'Neill were a generation apart here in Provincetown. I think it'll be fun to see some international groups come in and do Eugene O'Neill plays. We have a group from Russia doing an adaptation of Anna Christie. We have a group from South Africa doing an adaptation of Desire into the Elms, a multiracial cast. So those are just a couple of the things we're doing. I wanted to give you guys a discount. If you live in Provincetown, you get a townie discount. If you don't, we're giving you $5 off any Eugene O'Neill play, and these will be right outside as you leave. So be sure to pick one of these up. And thanks very much for your attention.
So the O'Neill 100 series is very proud to present Stephen Bloom.
Thank you, Stuart. It's great to be here. I come to Provincetown briefly almost every summer, but have fond memories a few years ago, 2005, I believe it was. Actually, when the O'Neill Society came here for our international conference, and with Richard Olson's help as the co-director, he and I really created the program here that summer. It was a wonderful conference that we had here. So it's great to be back, and I really want to thank Stuart and all the actors and the Provincetown Public Library for this program that you're doing with us. And I say that on behalf of myself and on behalf of the O'Neill Society, because this is exactly what we wish was happening all over the country. Because O'Neill is so important and somewhat unrecognized in a lot of places around this country, and if not here in Provincetown, then where else? So I'm glad it's happening here, and I'm thrilled to be part of it. So how many of you have come to some of the other readings here? A few. And how many of you are familiar with either Isle or The Rope? Okay, most not. Okay, so most are not. And there's a mix, so I don't want to be too repetitious on O'Neill's life and background, but for some of you who haven't been here before, what I'm going to do is just kind of give you a very quick biographical sketch that brings you up to 2016 when he comes here, and 17 when he wrote these plays. O'Neill was born in a hotel in New York in Times Square, and his father was a matinee idol. At the time in the 19th century, James O'Neill. If you know Long Day's Journey into Night, that's pretty much the story of who his father was. He appeared in The Count of Monte Cristo and purchased that play, and then was kind of a slave to it for the rest of his career, and according to Long Day's Journey, regretted having kind of sold out when he could have been a great Shakespearean actor. But that's what he was known for. I think today he might have been the equivalent of a soap opera star or a television star in some ways. He was very well known and very well regarded in the traditional American theatrical circles. But he was on the road all the time, and O'Neill never had a home. He went off to boarding school when he was a young boy. The closest he came to a home was the cottage in New London, where they lived in the summers, where Long Day's Journey into Night takes place. And if you've never been there, it's a historic landmark, historic site, I believe, and I recommend it if you're ever on your way to New York City on 95. Take a side trip off the road, and you can go check out the Monte Cristo cottage. But O'Neill really traveled around a lot, lived in different places throughout his life, even after he was grown up. But his early years were spent, sometimes his family, his father and mother would take him on the road, but sometimes not. His mother would leave, go on the road and leave the boys with a nursemaid who took care of them. And that's something I want to come back to. He spent 1 year at Princeton in 1909, was kicked out for bad behavior pretty much. At that time he moved to New York City, and that's when he kind of fell in with the group of left-wing, bohemian kind of people that he hung out with. And at that time he met a woman named Kathleen Jenkins and fathered a child with her, Eugene O'Neill Jr. They were married, and then he quickly went off to sea, and that's when his sea adventures began. And he spent a lot of time at sea and in bars and in various ports of call around the world, and certainly coming back to New York in the course of those travels. He lives that life for several years, and that's really important in terms of what he started to write about, because he lived at sea and he lived in the port cities, in the places he shipped out to. In 1912, he returned in 1911 from several voyages, and his father arranged a divorce from Kathleen Jenkins, which took a while to happen. But in the year of 1912, the divorce came through. It's a seminal year in O'Neill's life. He attempted suicide, living in a place called Jimmy the Priest's, which is one of the models for the bar in The Yes Man Cometh. At that time, he also returns to New London after the suicide attempt to live with his parents. That's when Long Day's Journey takes place. He's diagnosed with tuberculosis, goes to a sanitarium in Connecticut that summer in 1912, and does a lot of reading, and decides that he really wants to. Reads a lot of plays, and he writes a letter to George Pierce Baker, the Harvard professor teaching a famous playwrights workshop at Harvard, and applies to be there, saying that he aspires to be an artist in nothing. Baker accepts him. He spends a year in that program. Can't afford to continue in it, so he goes to New York and goes to Greenwich Village, and this is around 1914, where again he meets and becomes friends with a lot of people in the village, the intellectual, the left-wing intellectuals, particularly some of the people associated with the Provincetown Players, which begins here in Provincetown, as you know, in 1915. That's when 1916 he comes to Provincetown in 1916, and that's when the Provincetown Players read one of his plays that doesn't impress them very much, but soon after that they read Bound East for Cardiff, and that's when Susan Glaspell reportedly said, "Now we knew what we were for," having read that play. And then it was done on the wharf, and that's the first production that this summer is commemorating. He goes back to Greenwich Village after that summer, and comes back to Provincetown in March of 1917, because he found the isolation here, the proximity to the sea, and the fact that it was dry at the time, very conducive to his writing, because he was an alcoholic, but he was a periodic alcoholic. So he said he'd never write anything worth a damn when he was drunk. So he would write he would finish a play, and then he would go off on a bender and get drunk. And those could go on for quite a while. And so he found Provincetown appealing for a number of reasons, among which at that time was the fact that it was dry and he could write without the temptation of alcohol. Although I understand he brought a few bottles with him to wean himself off from his benders in New York. When he came here in 1970, he lived at the Atlantic House. So this is where, as a professor, I'm prepared with Plan B, but the technology isn't working. I'll try to show from here. It is a small venue. This is a picture that I was starting with, which is a well-known picture. It's the statue of this picture in the harbor in New London. I like to start with it just because it's such an innocent picture of O'Neill as a young boy sitting looking out over the water in New London. So this is the Atlantic House here in Provincetown at the time, where he lived with Henry DiPolo. I have not previously done that much research about his time here, but I do know that the Atlantic House still exists, and of course is a well-known club and bar here in Provincetown now that really began at that time as a hotel, but became more of a bar. And I don't think now it has rooms for rent anymore. I think it's just strictly a bar. But I think it's interesting that that's where he lived and where he spent that summer, that spring. And when he wrote, at that time, he wrote the first play you're going to hear tonight, Isle. He wrote that at the time, along with In the Zone, The Long Voyage Home, and Moon of the Caribbees, which I know have also been done as part of this series, which were known as his Glencairn plays. Although this play although it takes place at sea, it does not take place aboard that ship. So it's a play of the sea, but it's not one of the so-called sea plays that are associated with the SS Glencairn. Isle was written here in March of 1917 and then first produced in Greenwich Village at the Playwrights Theatre in November of 1917. During that year in Greenwich Village, he met his second wife, Agnes Bolton, and he returned here with her in March of that year of 1918 to live with her in Provincetown. And that's when he wrote, at that time, they rented a room from John Francis, apparently it was on Conwell Street, and that's where he wrote The Rope in 1918. And I just wanted to, at that time, The Rope is a little longer as a one-act play, and in fact, up until now, he's just writing one-act plays, but he's starting to work on Beyond the Horizon, which is his first full-length play. And what he said at that time, in the spring of 18, a decade later, what he said about that, the time when he was writing it, a young playwright wrote to him about, she was asking questions about writing and one-act plays, and he said he had become rather fed up with one-act plays by this time in his career, and he said there's a time to write them and a time to stop writing them, because you've reached the stage where your need of expression is bigger than one act, must be bigger. And so he's starting to work on a longer play, Beyond the Horizon, for which he will eventually win his first Pulitzer Prize in 1920. But meanwhile, while that was kind of fermenting, he was working on Where the Cross is Made, The Dreamy Kid, and The Rope, which is a somewhat longer one-act play. And these were produced in Greenwich Village in April of 1918, The Rope was. The Isle was published in a magazine called The Smart Set, which was quite an accomplishment for him at the time, to have that published there. His father, who was not crazy about the way he was living his life, was kind of pleased with the fact that he had gotten this play published in that magazine. And eventually, Isle was published in a collection of The Long Voyage Home, 7 Plays of the Sea, that included several of these plays that we've been experiencing here in Provincetown this summer. Isle is a sea play. It takes place at the sea. The Rope is not really a sea play. It takes place on land, but it is very associated with the sea. Apparently, its setting was inspired by a farm in Truro, It overlooks the sea, as you'll see. And the sea figures prominently in the play. So I'll leave it at that for now. So these two plays, they've always been two of my favorites of his one-act plays for a number of reasons. But I think they're really great examples of O'Neill's mastery of the one-act form, as well as great examples of why his one-act plays are so important in terms of providing inklings and hints of what was to come, of the great things he was going to write later. He's so associated with long plays. I mean, we had the great pleasure to see the Broadway production of Long Day's Journey this past spring, and it's a good 4 hours. And we saw just this summer also saw a production of The Iceman Comet in Tampa, Florida, where they did the whole thing, and it was 5 hours and 15 minutes. Strange interlude when O'Neill wrote it, had a dinner intermission, and people went out and had dinner and came back for the second half. I mean, so that's what he's known for. But he started out by writing these one-actors, and he's really good at it. And actually, he returns to it at the end of his career, and I know you're going to have that experience at the end of this series when he writes the longer one-act, but it's still a one-act play called Huey, which was one of his later and greater plays. But there are seeds of that, so many seeds of that in these early one-act plays. In his early years as he was writing and once he started to aspire to be a playwright and started to tinker with one-act plays and took the workshop at Harvard, he was trying he was looking for advice from people, and I think it was Kenneth McGowan, although I'm not 100% sure, who advised him at the time to write what you know about, to write about what you know. And it's interesting that these early plays, he kind of took that to heart, because what he knew about was the sea. He went to sea, as I just explained, and he spent several years doing that, and that's where he seemed to draw his first inspiration for things to write about. And he depicted this world of men at sea, as well as their life in these seedy bars and bars/hotels around the ports where he also spent time. And what was interesting was that he chose this topic, but it's important for a couple of reasons, because for one thing, American drama at that time there weren't plays set in those environments, in seedy bars and brothels and even aboard ship. That's not American drama at the time in the early 20th century were melodramas and light comedies and musicals, and so it was not these kind of plays that took place in these settings. And so O'Neill really changed things by doing that. It's also interesting that he's drawn to these plays, to these subject matter, because what you see, although they seem non-autobiographical, once you know about O'Neill, you also can see that he's starting to tackle some of his own personal struggles with his own family. That becomes, there's no writer that I know of that is so as autobiographical as O'Neill. Most blatantly in Long Day's Journey Tonight and Infamous Begotten. But even in these early plays that seem so far from him, he is working out his own issues with his own parents and his brother. And I'm going to just illustrate that briefly in a minute. So I'll start with Isle just quickly. The subject matter of Isle is interesting. As Stuart said, it's based on apparently a true story about a couple, Captain John Cook and his wife Viola, who lived here in Provincetown. She went to sea with him 5 times, according to what I've read. The voyage that's depicted here apparently was the 4th voyage, where they signed on for a 2-year voyage, and it went on for 44 months, I believe. And his crew staged a mutiny against him. He suppressed it. He used force. He was cruel to his men, apparently. And his wife spent all this time aboard ship. And although she went on other voyages, this one apparently sent her over the edge. And she came back, according to Mary Heaton Gorse, who told O'Neill the story of the Cooks. When Viola Cook came ashore, her mind had been shaken by the loneliness and perhaps by the cruelty of her husband. Sorry, I'm forgetting about my images. So these pictures, both of these pictures of the Atlantic House and the Cooks, come from my friend and colleague Rob Richter's great book about O'Neill's maritime influences, That Old Devil Sea, and I think Rob has spoken here as well. But these are the Cooks photograph that appears in that book, in his book. And so apparently, according to Rob, there was a prominent physician in Nome, Alaska at the time who said that Mrs. Viola Cook's condition was caused by being in cold, dark conditions for so long. So apparently when she finally, that she went mad on this ship, on this voyage. And apparently there are, stories in Provincetown that when she returned here, she was heard wailing and really signs of instability. Again, a quote from Rob's book: "Especially disturbed was she at the." This is actually a quote in his book from Mary Vorst. "Especially disturbed was she at the full of the moon, and one could hear her wailing hymns at such times. The story is, too, that when Captain John Cook came home, he pushed heavy furniture beside the door of his room because Mrs. Cook had the habit of honing the kitchen knives, razor sharp, as the knives of a whaling vessel are kept." So there's this image of this crazy woman who has been driven mad by this and is a threat to her husband when she comes back here. But there are lots of stories about that, about people seeing her walking the streets and talking to herself, and so that's this interesting that O'Neill found that couple. Now Vorst told him the story, and she said, "I'm too close." She was a writer too, and wrote stories, and was a journalist. And she said, "But I'm too close to them to write the story." So O'Neill said he would write it, and he did it in a play. So he's drawn to them, but it's interesting that he's drawn to them because of the story of his parents that I'm going to come to in a minute. She died of, Viola died in 1922 at age 67 from heart failure, and shortly before that happened, Captain Cook actually divorced her, married someone else, and fled Provincetown and went to live in Florida the rest of his life. So O'Neill obviously took this story and exaggerated it, but it's in many ways, but it is based on that true story. Now, it's what I think he found there was really a subject that rung true because of his own parents. I told you that his father went off to the theater to perform in his plays, and would sometimes take his wife with her. And she had this grand vision of when she was a young woman when she met James O'Neill, and thought that being married to an actor was going to be this. She had romanticized this whole his whole image, and saw it as the public saw it. And her marriage to him was not quite like that, as you know if you know Long Day's Journey into Night. Accusations of him being brought home, left at drunk at night and left at the hotel door, her being, not having anybody to talk to on the road, and really kind of a lonely existence, much like the existence of this woman aboard ship in Isle. So there's really a parallel there, and this early in his time, he's still struggling with that. A scholar named Stephen Black wrote a biography some years ago that takes a psychoanalytic approach to O'Neill's life and really sees everything. O'Neill lost his father, mother, and brother between 1920 and 1923. And Black sees everything from there on as him working out his grief in his plays. But it clearly starts, he's not just working out his grief, he's working out the whole family dynamic, even before his parents die, through a situation like this. Because, again, yes, Vorst told him, and he said, well, that might make a good one-act play, but also you have to believe that there was something about that relationship that struck a bell with him because of his parents' relationship. Also, you'll see his mother was a morphine addict, and in the course of Long Day's Journey becomes addicted again and ends up, there's a scene at the end when she's wildly playing the piano, which you will see a reference to that here. I have to, since many of you don't know the play, I really don't want to spoil things because the ends are very important here, so I'm trying not to give spoiler alerts, and I'm going to try to be discreet in how I talk about the ending. So the subject matter of the rope is a little different. As far as I know, it's not a true story, but as Stuart said, draws on the story of the prodigal son. O'Neill's father was at the time that he wrote this play, the rope. O'Neill's father was in a play called The Wanderer, which was of another interpretation of the prodigal son. The difference is that one stuck pretty much to the prodigal son story, whereas O'Neill is going to twist it. And again, I don't want to give too much away, but O'Neill's going to twist that story. The prodigal son is a story of a profligate son who leaves his father, leaves his home, comes home, and repents and seeks forgiveness and finds forgiveness from his father. And O'Neill finds in this story, again, I think autobiographical connections, because it's very much what he had done. Remember, he went to sea, left his family, and comes back to New London later. His brother also is a drunk and a womanizer, and kind of really disgraces the family, but keeps coming back to New London every summer. So there's that prodigal son is something that sticks in O'Neill's mind, and gets played out in this play. Happened to be at the Rodin exhibit at the Peabody Essex the other day and saw this and couldn't help taking a picture of it. Rodin's Prodigal Son. Not quite what you're going to see in the road. So O'Neill's version. So let me. I want to kind of sum up so I can get to the reading, which I know we all want to hear. So I want to say three things about O'Neill that are important about this. About these two plays and really his one acts in these early plays. His father was this actor in great melodrama at the time, and O'Neill became really the creator of American tragedy in many ways. But his plays are full of melodrama, and you're going to see it in these two plays. There's exposition, this way of having to fill you in on all the background. And I would argue that in Isle, it's a little like the old well-made plays where it's done artificially by characters who aren't that essential to the plot, tell you a lot of information you need to know, and then leave and don't come back. That was how melodramas worked in the 19th century. In The Rope, he's advanced a little bit, and he has the exposition done by characters who are essential to the story, who don't just tell you what you need to know and leave. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. You're going to think that you're seeing good guys, bad guys, villains, heroes, and he's playing on that, which is typical of melodrama. There's also plot turns and twists and unexpected revelations at the end, and last-minute revelations that are typical of melodrama. However, these plays are full of realism, which is really how O'Neill transformed American theater. The environment. I'm not going to, I noted some stage directions, but I'm not going to take the time to read them, because one of the great things about having a reading like this is that you're going to hear, maybe not all, but some of the stage directions. Nobody wrote stage directions like Eugene O'Neill. If you read his plays, the stage directions are voluminous. They go on and on and on. There's a wonderful production, the Neo-Futurists, the theater company in New York, is dedicated, and they started to do only the stage directions of O'Neill's plays. It's fascinating. It's comical, but it's fascinating. It's a whole performance art in and of itself. And I've seen it with the one acts. They've started with the one acts, but the director is dedicated to doing all of O'Neill. So watch for that if it ever comes to Provincetown, or if you're ever in New York and you can see it. It's really fascinating. But O'Neill's stage directions are really important. And they go from very detailed description of characters, and you'll hear some of that, I think, to very detailed descriptions of how the characters are supposed to act and emote. So that was part of the realism. A lot of these characters were based on people he knew. There's also, some people feel that he's so detailed about his stage direction that he didn't really trust actors. And he wanted to make sure they did it as he wanted it to be done. But some of his plays really read like novels, if you read all the stage directions. Also, the talk of I talked about the kinds of people these plays are about. They sound real also, the dialect of O'Neill. Just Stuart mentioned ILE. When you first see it, what's Isle? We all say Isle, but it's oil. It's the dialect of oil. And O'Neill lived with these characters, lived with these people on ships and in bars, and he absorbed how they spoke. And his plays are full of dialect. When I teach O'Neill plays, when I teach any play, I like to have students read them out loud. But it's really important with O'Neill because when they sit there reading the dialect, it's almost a different language. And not until you start to read it, you don't even have to be a trained actor to start to actually sound like these characters, because he's given you the phonetics of it. Of course, good actors also get swept up in that, and I think they can speak to it better than I, but I think it adds something to the realism of these plays. So subject matter that is unusual, not just the characters, subject matter that was unusual on the American stage, as Stuart said, in these early plays. There's abortion, there's not these two plays, but others that you've seen. He writes a play about a relationship with a black man and a white woman, things that were not done on the American stage. O'Neill starts doing in the teens and the 20s. In this one, even though we've got indications of a kind of spousal abuse and hints of patricide and fathers killing sons and sons killing fathers. Unexpected, not necessarily happy endings. That's what he's going to change from melodrama. And more psychological depth. Melodrama or situation over character, realism is character over situation. And you're going to see that signs of both in these plays. And I think the movement from aisle to the rope is really where you start to see character becoming richer in both of these plays than just situation. These plays also foreshadow later plays, which I've mentioned already, Long Day's Journey into Night in particular, referencing Isle and The Rope. He's going to write a much longer version called Desire Under the Elms a few years later that has a lot of similar characters. And the last thing I want to say is that this is often the image. This is the image that appears on a collection of O'Neill's early plays. The serious, kind of dreary O'Neill, which again, aside from length, people always think O'Neill is very serious and depressing, and that is, of course, his image. What you're going to find in this play, in these plays, is a concept of ironic fate, which was very important to O'Neill, and begins in these plays. And I'm quoting here from a seminal work on O'Neill by Travis Bogart. By ironic fate, O'Neill meant that the lives of the characters are controlled, in despite of their wills, by a power of destiny that is inexorable, malevolent insofar as it can be said to have purpose, but in essence meaningless. So I ask you to keep that in mind. As I said, I don't want to spoil the ending for you, but I want to put these things out for you. That's what O'Neill lies behind both of these plays. This sense of what O'Neill later called hopeless hope, that a life is essentially meaningless, and we humans keep trying to find meaning, trying to find purpose, and we keep getting beaten down. There's a great speech in Long Day's Journey by Edmund, the son who represents O'Neill, where he talks about a moment at sea where he felt he had meaning, he had found meaning. And I'm not going to read the whole passage, but at the end of that passage he says, "For a second you see, and seeing in the secret are the secret. For a second there is meaning. Then the hand lets the veil fall, and you are alone, lost in the fog again, and you stumble on toward nowhere for no good reason." That's Long Day's Journey. And again, I ask you to just keep that in the back of your mind as you're watching this play. And one more that I want to put out there for you is a comment that he made about his concept of hopeless hope in a 1922 interview. He said, "The point is that life in itself is nothing. It is the dream that keeps us fighting, willing, living. Only through the unattainable does man achieve a hope worth living and dying for, and so attain himself." So this is the common image, the serious O'Neill. This one's dark, serious, that kind. But I recently came upon some photographs, and this is one of them. Where I got these photographs is a whole other story for another time. But this photograph and this photograph, there aren't too many pictures of O'Neill smiling. These two photographs are of him smiling, but not only smiling. Ever since the first time I read these two plays, I've always felt that there's an ironic grin hanging over both of them. And again, I'm not going to tell you how they end, but when it comes to the ending, think about O'Neill's ironic grin. Think about that picture of O'Neill with that look in his eye, right? When you get to the ends of these plays. Because again, I think that O'Neill's vision, which again is just suggested here, but becomes a much bigger, more profound, complex vision in his later plays. But even in this play, you see signs of that sense of that human beings try to assert their will and they keep, and when you think you've got it, like Edmund, if you get there, it's just for a minute and you get smacked back down again, right? And so, but the other part of it, and although that's where the intensity of these plays comes from, there's some hope in the fact that in his vision is also the fact that people keep getting back up and trying again, that that's the human plight. And I see that there are signs, even in these early plays, of early signs of existentialism and theater of the absurd, which is part of what makes these plays so interesting. They really present you with the kernel of how O'Neill changed American theater, how he struggled with autobiography throughout his plays, unlike any other writer I know, and how he started to form his tragic vision. So with that, I'm going to leave you to the actors and I'll interrupt.
By Eugene O'Neill. The characters are Ben, the cabin boy, the steward, Captain Keeney, Slocum, the second mate, Mrs. Keeney, Joe, the harpooner, and a member of the crew of the steam whaler, the Atlantic Queen. The scene is Captain Keeney's cabin on board the steam whaling ship, the Atlantic Queen. It is a small square compartment, about 8 feet high, with a skylight in the center looking out on the poop deck. To the right is a small organ, looking as if it were brand new and placed against the wall. The silence is unbroken, except for the measured tread of someone walking up and down on the poop deck overhead. It is nearing 2 bells, 1 o'clock, in the afternoon of a day in the year 1895. As the curtain rises, there is a moment of intense silence. Then the steward enters and commences to clear the table of the few dishes which still remain on it after the captain's dinner. He stops stacking up the plates and casts a quick glance upward at the skylight, then tiptoes over to the closed door and listens with his ear pressed to the crack. What he hears makes his face darken, and he makes a furious curse.
Damn!
There is a noise from the doorway as he darts back to the table. Ben, the cabin boy, enters. His teeth are chattering with cold. He stands for a moment shivering, blowing on his hands, slapping them against his sides, and he is on the verge of crying.
Oh. It is you, is it? What you shivered about? Stay by the stove where you belong. You find no need of chattering.
It's cold. Who do you think you were, the old man?
I'll turn your lip, young man. I'll learn you. Where has you been all the time? In the forecastle?
Yes.
If the old man see you forward, monkey shining with the hands, you get a hiding you'll not forget in a hurry.
Oh, he don't see nothing. He just walks up and down like he didn't notice nobody and stares at the ice to the northward.
He's always staring at the ice. 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 Ice! Damn him! And damn the ice! Holding us in for nigh on a year! Now the deceiving ice! Stuck in it! Like a fly in molasses! Shh!
He'll hear ye.
Aye! Damn him! And damn the Arctic seas, and damn this stinking whaling ship of his, and damn me for a fool that ever sailed out on it. He's a hard man. As hard a man as ever sailed the seas. 2 years we all signed up for are done. On this day. Blessed Christ. 2 years of this dog's life. And no luck in the fishing. And the hands half starved with the food running low. Rotten as it is. Not a sign of him turning back. For home! Home. I begin to doubt if I'll ever set foot on the land again. What does he think he's going to do? Keep us all up here? After our time was worked out to the last man is starved to death or frozen? We've got enough. Our little last out the voyage was turning back now. What are the men going to do about it? Did you hear any talk in the forecastle?
They said, if you don't put back south for home today, they're going to mutiny.
Mutiny. Aye. It is the only thing they can do. And serve him right. After the manner he's treated them. They weren't no better than the dogs.
The ice is all broke up to the southern. There's clear water as far as you can see. He ain't got no excuse for turning back for home, the man says.
You won't look nowheres but nothing. There's only ice to see. You don't want to see no clear water. All he thinks on is getting the oil. If it was our fault, he hadn't had good luck with the whales. I think the man's mighty nigh to losing his senses.
Do you really think he's crazy?
Aye. It's the punishment of God on him. Did you ever hear of a man who wasn't crazy do the things he does? Who but a man that's mad would take his woman, and as sweet woman as ever was, on a stinking whaling ship to the Arctic seas to be locked in by the rotten ice for nigh on a year? And maybe lose her senses. But I'm sure she'll never be the same again.
She used to be awful nice to you before. She got like she is.
Aye. You did good to all of us. You'd been hell on board without her. He's a hard man. A hard man. The driver, if ever there was one. I hope he's satisfied now. Driving her on till she's nearly lost her mind. And who could blame her? Tis the gods wonder we're not all a ship full of crazed people. The damn ice all the time. The quiet. So thick. You're afraid to hear your own voice.
She don't never speak to me no more. Just looks at me as if she didn't know me.
She don't know no one but him. She talks to him. And she does talk. Right enough.
She does nothing all day long now but sit and sew. And then she cries to herself without making no noise. I've seen her.
I could hear her through the door a while back.
She's crying now.
God send his soul to hell, and the devil he is!
There is the noise of someone coming slowly down the companionship stairs. The steward hurries to his stacked up dishes. He is so nervous from fright that he knocks off the top one, which falls and breaks on the floor. He stands aghast, trembling with dread. Ben is violently rubbing off the organ with a piece of cloth which he has snatched from his pocket. Captain Keeney appears in the doorway and comes into the cabin. He is followed by the cabin's second mate. The steward is visibly frightened, and the stack of dishes rattles in his trembling hand. Keeney draws back his fist, and the steward shrinks away.
It's going to be like getting over. It's nigh on 2 bells, Mr. Stuart. And this truck is not cleared yet.
Yes, sir.
Instead of doing your rightful work, you've been below here, gossiping old woman's talk with that boy. Get out of this here, you! Clean up the chart room! Pick up that dish, Mr. Stuard.
Yes.
The next dish you break, Mr. Stuard! You take a bath in the Bering Sea at the end of a rope.
Yes.
I wasn't actually anxious the man at the wheel should catch what I wanted to say to you, sir. That's why I asked you to come below.
Speak your say, Mr. Slocum.
Well, I'm afeard there'll be trouble with the hands by the look of things. They'll likely turn ugly. Every blessed one of them. If you don't put back. The 2 years they signed up for is up today.
And you think you're telling me something new, Mr. Slocum? I felt it in the air this long time past. Do you think I've not seen their ugly looks and the grudging way they worked?
Mrs. Keeney stands in the doorway. She is weeping. Her eyes are red from weeping, and her face is drawn and pale. She takes in the cabin with a frightful glance and stands as if fixed to the spot by some nameless dread. Clasping and unclasping her hands nervously, the two men turn and look at her.
Well, Annie.
David,
Wait.
Yes, sir.
Do you want anything, Annie?
I thought maybe I'd go up on deck, David, to get a breath of fresh air.
It's too cold, Annie. You best stay below today. There's nothing to look on deck but ice.
I know. Ice and ice and ice. But there's nothing to see down here but these walls.
You can play the organ, Annie.
I hate the organ. It puts me in mind of home.
I got it just for you.
I know.
She turns away from them and walks slowly. She lifts up one of the curtains and looks through a porthole, then utters an exclamation of joy.
Ah! Water! Clear water! As far as I can see! Oh, how good it looks after all these months of ice! Oh, now I must go up on deck and look at it, David.
Best not today, Annie. Best wait for a day when the sun shines.
But the sun never shines in this terrible
Best not today, Annie.
Very well, David, very well.
Annie,
Yes, David.
me and Mr. Slocum has business to talk about. Ship's business.
Very well, David.
She goes slowly out.
Let's not have her on deck. There's going to be any trouble.
Yes, sir.
And trouble there's going to be. I feel it in my bones.
He takes a revolver from the pocket of his coat and examines it.
Got you on?
Yes, sir.
Not that we have to use them. Not if I know their breed of dog. Just to frighten them up a bit. I ain't never been forced to use one yet, and trouble I've had by land and by sea, as long as I can remember. And I will have till my dying day, I reckon.
Then you ain't gonna turn back?
Turn back! Slocum, did you ever hear of me plying towards south for home with only a measly 400 barrel of ale in the hold?
No, sir. But the grub's getting low.
There's enough to last a long time yet, if they're careful with it. And there's plenty of water.
They say it's not fit to eat. What's left? And the 2 years they signed on for is up today. They might make trouble for you in the courts when you get home.
Hell with it! Let them make trouble. What law trouble they can. I don't give a damn about the money. I got to head the aisle! You turn, no. Damn, see, lawyer. Be you, Mr. Slocum?
Not by a hell of a sight, sir.
Oh, what do the fools want to go home for now? They're sure the 400 barrel wouldn't keep them in chewing tobacco.
They want us to get back to their folks and things, I suppose.
And you want to get back too? Oh, don't lie, Mr. Slocum. It's writ down plain in your eyes. I hope, Mr. Slocum, you ain't going to join the men again me.
That ain't fair, sir. To say such things.
I weren't much afeard of that. You've been with me nigh on 10 year, and I've learned you all your whirling. No man can say I ain't a good master, if I be a hard one.
I weren't thinking of myself, sir. About turning home, I mean. But Mrs. Keeney, sir. Seems like she just ain't satisfied up here. Ailing like. Well, with the cold, bad luck, ice and all.
That's my business, Mr. Slocum. I'll thank you to steer a clear course of that. The ice will break up soon to the north, and I can see it starting today. And when it cools, and we get some sun in, you'll perk up. Oh, it ain't the damn money what's keeping me up in the northern seas, Tom. But I can't go to Homeport with a measly 400 barrel of ale. I die first. I ain't never come back home in all my days without a full ship. Ain't that true?
Yes, sir. But this voyage, you've been icebound and...
Oh, do you suppose any of them would believe that? Any of them skippers? I've been beaten voyage after voyage. Can you hear them laughing at and sneering Tibbets, and Harris and Sims and the rest, and all the Homeport making fun of me? Me! Dave Keeney was boast he's the best whaling skipper out of Homeport, coming back with a measly 400 barrel of ale. Oh, hell, I got to get the ale! I tell you, how could I figure on this ice? It's never been so bad in the 30 years I've been coming here. And now it's breaking up in a couple of days. It'll be gone. And there's whale here, plenty of them. I know there is. I ain't never been wrong yet. I got to get to your eel. I got to get it in spite of all hell, and by God, I ain't going home until I get it.
There is a sound of subdued sobbing from the door. The two men stand silent for a moment, listening. Then Joe, the harpooner, enters and stands waiting for the captain to notice him.
Don't be sitting there like a golf harpooner. Speak up.
We want the men, sir. They want to send a deputation to have a word with them.
Tell him to go. Tell him to come. I'll see him.
Aye, sir.
Here it comes. The trouble I spoke to you, Mr. Slocum. We'll make short shift of it. It's better to crush such things as let them start before they make headway.
Should I wake up the first and the fourth? We might need them, sir.
No. Let them sleep. I'm well able to handle this alone, Mr. Slocum.
There is a sound of shuffling footsteps from outside, and some of the men of the crew crowd into the cabin, led by Joe.
Well, who's to speak for ye?
I be, sir.
So you be. Speak your say and be quick about it.
The time we signed up for is done today.
Telling me nothing I don't know.
Wait, you ain't panting for home yet, far as we can see.
No, and I ain't going to go home till this ship is full of ile.
You can't go no further north with ice afore you.
The ice is breaking up.
The grub we's getting now is rotten.
It's good enough for ye. Better men than ye have eaten worse.
We ain't gonna work no more unless you puts back for home.
You ain't, ain't you?
No. And the law courts...
To hell with your law courts! We're at sea, now! And I'm the law of this ship! And every mother's son, and for what you don't pay orders, gets into irons!
Mrs. Keeney appears in the doorway and rear. None of the men notice her.
then we're gonna mutiny and take the old hooker home ourselves, ain't we, boys?
As he turns to say to the others, Keeney's fist shoots out. Mr. Keeney gives a shriek. Mrs. Keeney and hides her face in her hands. The men start a rush.
Hold still!
But they stop when they find themselves
Hold
confronted
still!
by the revolver of Mr. Keeney.
You found it ain't safe to mutiny on the ship, do you? Now get forward where you belong! And drag him with you! And remember, the first man I see shirking, I'll shoot dead. As sure as there's a sea under us. And you can tell the rest the same. Get forward now, quick!
The men leave in cowed silence.
Best get up on deck, Mr. Slocum. See to it that they don't try none of their skulking tricks. To keep an eye peeled from now on. I know him.
Oh, yes, sir.
There, Annie. Don't be afeard. It's past and gone.
I can't bear it! I can't bear it! I can't bear it any longer!
Can't bear what, Annie?
All this horrible brutality! And all these brutes of men and this terrible ship and this prison cell of a room and the ice that's all around and the silence!
I'll remember, I won't anchor for you to come on this voyage, Annie.
I wanted to be with you, David. Don't you see? I didn't want to wait back there in the house all alone as I've been doing these last 6 years since we were married. Just waiting and watching and fearing and nothing to keep my mind occupied. Not able to go back to teaching on account of being Dave Keeney's wife. And I used to dream of sailing on the great, wide, glorious ocean. I wanted to be by your side in the danger and the vigorous life of it all. I wanted to see you as the hero that they made you out to be in Homeport. And all I find is ice and cold and this brutality.
I warned you what it'd be, Annie. Willing ain't no ladies' tea party, I says to you. And you better stay home, where you've got all your woman's comforts. But you were so set on it.
Oh, I know it wasn't. It isn't your fault, David. You see, I didn't believe you. I guess I was dreaming about the old Viking stories in the books, and I thought you were one of them.
I've done my best to make it cozy and comfortable for you. Oh, I even sent to the city for that organ for you, thinking it might be soothing to you to play it at times when there was calms and when it was dull-like.
Yeah, you were very kind, David. Yes, I know that.
Mrs. Keeney gets up and goes to the left and lifts up the curtains from the porthole and looks out. She suddenly bursts forth.
Take me away from here, David! If I can't get away from here on this terrible ship, I'll go mad. Take me home, David. 'Cause I can't think anymore. I feel as if the cold and the silence were crushing down on my brain. I'm afraid. Take me home.
Just go to bed, Annie. You ain't yourself. You got fever. Your eyes look strange like. I've never seen you look like this before.
It's the ice and the cold and the silence. They make anyone look strange.
In a month or two, with good luck, nobody, 3 at the most, I'll have it filled with ale, and then we'll give her everything and stand her, and we'll point for home.
I can't wait for that. I can't wait. So I want to go home. And the men won't wait. They want to go home. It's cruel, it's brutal for you to keep them. Oh, you must sail back. And you've got no excuse. There's clear water to the south. Ah, if you've a heart at all, you've got to turn back.
I can't, Annie.
Why can't you?
A woman couldn't rightly understand my reasons.
Because it's a stupid, stubborn reason. Oh, I heard you talking with the second mate. You're afraid that the other captains will sneer at you because you didn't come back with a full ship. You want to live up to your silly reputation, even if you do have to beat and starve men and drive me mad to do
It
it.
ain't that, Annie. Them skippers would never dare sneer at my face. It ain't so much what one of them would say. But you see, I've always done it. Since my first voyage as a skipper, I always come back with a full ship. It don't seem right not to. Somehow, I've always been first whaling skipper out of homeport, and don't you see my meaning, Annie? Annie. Best turn in, Annie. There's a good woman. You ain't well.
Won't you please, David? Won't you please turn back?
And Annie, not yet a while. You don't see my meaning. I got to get the oil.
It'd be different if you needed the money, but you don't. You've got more than plenty.
It ain't the money. Do you think I'm as mean as that?
No, I just don't know. I don't know. I can't understand. Oh, I want to be home in the old house, in my own kitchen, and hear a woman's voice again, and be able to talk to her. 2 years. Oh, it seems so long. It's as if I've been dead and I could never go back.
Let's go to bed, Annie. You ain't well.
You know, I used to be lonely when you went away. I used to think that Homeport was a stupid, monotonous place. And then I used to go down to the beach, especially when it was windy. And the breakers were rolling in, and I'd dream of the fine, free life that you were leading. I used to love the sea then. And now, I don't ever want to see the sea again.
'Tis no place for a woman. I'm sure. I was a fool to bring ye.
How long would it take us to reach home if we started now?
About 2 months, I reckon, Annie, with fair luck.
That would be August. The latter part of August, wouldn't it? It was on the 25th of August that we got married, David, wasn't it? Wasn't it?
Don't you remember?
Wasn't it? Oh, my memory is leaving me up here in the ice. It was so long ago. It's June now, though. And the lilacs will all be in bloom in the front yard. And the rose trellis is climbing on the side of the house. And they're budding.
Go in and rest, Annie. You're all worn out crying over what can't be helped.
You love me, don't you, David?
Love you? Why do you ask me such a question, Annie?
Because you do, David! David? Tell me.
I'm your husband, Annie, and you're my wife. Could there be aught but love between us
Well, then
after all these years?
Then you do love me, so say it.
I do, Annie.
Oh. 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 I sometimes think if we could only have had a child. And I've always been a good wife to you, haven't I, David?
No man has had better, Annie.
And I've never asked for much from you, have I, David? Have I?
You know, you could have all I got the power to give you, Annie.
Then do this one thing for me, please. For God's sake. Take me home. It's killing me, this life. The brutality and the cold and the horror of it. I'm going mad. I can feel it. The threat is in the air. I can hear the silence. It's threatening me. Day after great day, and it's every day it's the same. I just can't bear it. I'm so mad, I know it. Oh, take me home. David, if you love me as you say, I'm afraid. For the love of God, take me home.
His face betrays the tremendous struggle going on within him. He holds her out at arm's length, and for a moment, his shoulders sag. He becomes old. His iron spirit weakens as he looks at her tear-stained face.
I'll do it, Annie. For your sake. If you say it's needful for you.
God bless you, David! God bless you for that!
The ice is breaking up northward, sir. There's a clear passage through the floe, and clear water beyond, the lookout says.
Keeney straightens himself up like a man coming out of a trance. Mrs. Keeney looks at the mate with terrified eyes.
Clear passage.
Yes, sir.
To the northward.
Yes, sir.
Get her ready. And we'll drive her through.
Aye, aye, sir.
David?
Will the men be turned to willing, or must we drag it out of them?
They'll turn to willing enough. You put the fear of God into them, sir. They're meek as lambs.
Then drag them! Both watches! There's whale on the other side of this floe, and we're gonna get him!
Aye, aye, sir. Man your stations.
I was going to go home like a yellow dog!
David!
Woman! You ain't doing them right when you meddle in men's business and weaken them. You can't know my feelings. I got to prove a man to be a good husband for you, to take pride in. I got to get to Yale. I got to.
David? Aren't you going home?
You ain't? Well, go. Go and lie down a minute. I got to go up on deck.
She cries out after him. She passes her hand across her eyes,
David!
then commences to laugh hysterically. She goes to the organ. She sits down at the organ and starts to play wildly an old hymn. Keeney re-enters from the doorway to the deck and stands looking at her angrily. He comes over and grabs her shoulder.
Woman, what foolish mockery is this? Annie, what is it? Don't you know me, Annie?
He puts both hands on her shoulders and turns her around so that he can look into her eyes. She stares up at him with a stupid expression, a vague smile on her lips. He stumbles away from her, and she commences softly to play the organ again.
You said you was a going mad. God.
Oh, below! Well, sir, a whole school of them. Off the starboard corner, about 5 miles away. Big ones.
Are you loading the boats?
Yes, sir.
I'm coming with you.
Aye, aye, sir. You'll get the isle now, right enough, sir.
Annie! 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 Did you hear him? I'll get the eel.
She doesn't answer or seem to know he is there. He gives a hard laugh, which is almost a groan.
I know you're fooling me, Annie. You ain't out of your mind. I'll get the eel now, right enough. Just a little longer, Annie, then we'll turn homeward. I can't turn back now. You see that, don't you? I got to get thee healed! Answer me! Get mad, be you.
She keeps on playing the organ, but makes no reply. The mate's face appears again.
All ready, sir!
Keaty turns his back on his wife and strides to the doorway, where he stands for a moment and looks back at her in anguish, fighting to control his feelings.
Come in, sir! Aye!
He turns abruptly and goes out. Mrs. Keaty does not appear to notice his departure. Her whole alteration seems centered in the organ. She sits with half-closed eyes, her body swaying a little from side to the rhythm of the hymn. Her fingers move faster and faster and faster, and she plays wildly and discordantly as the curtain falls. The end. Rope. This is where a stage reading you have to use a little bit of your imagination. There is a central prop in the rope that we have to be very difficult when we're using, and that is a noose. So we will use the noose eventually, but just imagine that the noose is hanging right up here when they refer to it. There will be an actual noose towards the end of the play, but we just can't endanger our actors, particularly one of our actors is a child, by actually using a noose without having lots and lots of rehearsals with that. The Rope by Eugene O'Neill. The characters are Abraham Bentley, Annie, his daughter, Pat Sweeney, her husband, Mary, their child, and Luke Bentley, Abe's son by a second marriage. As they say, this is the prodigal son, which is a little like being prodigal. The scene is the interior of an old barn situated on top of a high headland off the seacoast of New England. Outside the doorway, the faint trace of what was once a road leading to the barn. Beyond the road, the edge of a cliff which rises sheer from the sea below. From the edge of the loft, halfway from the door, a rope about 5 feet long with an open running noose at the end is hanging. It is between 6 and 1/2 in the evening of a day in early spring. As the curtain rises, Mary, the 10-year-old daughter, is discovered squatting cross-legged on the floor. All of a sudden, noise from outside, and she jumps to her feet, peeks out, and quickly snatches up her toy, which she hugs fiercely to her breast. Then, after a second's fearful hesitation, she runs to the carpenter's table and crawls under it. As she does so, Abraham Bentley appears in the doorway and stands blinking into the shadowy barn. As he reaches the table, he leans one hand on it for support. And as he does so, Mary darts out from underneath and dashes out through the doorway.
Out of my sight, you papist brat! Spawn of Satan, spying on me! He set her to it, spying to watch me!
He limps to the door and looks out cautiously.
Spying,
Satisfied, he turns back into the barn.
spying to see what they'll never know.
He stands staring up at the rope.
It's tight, tight, strong, strong as death. They'll see then, they'll see. Woe unto us, for the day goeth away, for the shadows of the evening are stretched out. Spying on me, spawn of the pit. They hunt our steps, and we cannot go in our streets. Our end is near, our days are fulfilled, for our end is come.
As he finishes, Annie enters.
Pa? Pa? You ain't forgetting what the doctor told you now, are you? He said you was to sit still, and he does not want you out walking around. Now come on back to the house, Pa. It's getting near supper time, and you gotta take your medicine before, like he says.
The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins.
You better take watch on your health, Pa, and not be sneaking around up to this barn no more. Lord sake, soon as I turn my back, you go sneaking off again. It's enough to but drive anyone out of their mind.
Behold, everyone that useth proverbs shall use the proverb against thee, saying, as is the mother, so is her daughter. So is her daughter.
And if I am glad I take after her and not you, you wizard. And to find one of you to be shouting the scripture in a body's ear who has a livelong day to listen. You know, you that drove Ma to her grave with her nagging and your pension and your stinginess. You know, if you have a mind to pray, it's down at the meadow you ought to go and kneel by her grave, and you better ask God for forgiveness for all the meanness you've done to her while she was still alive.
As is the mother, so is her daughter. As is the mother, so is her daughter.
You quoting scripture.
Aye.
Why, Ma wasn't cold in the earth before you was down at the pole. You was down at the pole courting again. You were courting that harlot. Oh, and that was the talk of the whole town. And then you disgrace yourself and me by marrying her. Her! And bringing her back here into my home with you. And me still going every day to put flowers on Ma's grave that you'd forgotten. And between you know, you had drove me into the grave like you done Ma. If I hadn't married Pat Sweeney, so that I could get away and I could live in peace. And you took all high and mighty calls because he was Catholic?
Yeah.
You getting all religion for the moment just for spite of me? Because I left. And she egged you on. She egged you on against me. You saying it was a sin to marry a papist?
Hey.
After you not being in a Sunday meeting yourself for more than 20 years.
He will visit thine iniquity. He will visit thine
And and all the carryings on you had for the 6 years after I left home. The shame on the whole county. Your wife. Indeed. With a child she claims was yours, even though she was going with every farmer and that. Even the men off the ships in the port. And you was blind to it. And then she got sick. And she ran away. Only to meet her end at the hands of God 1 year later. She leaves you alone with that. Your son, Luke.
Hey,
She called him, and he was only 5 years old.
Luke. Yeah.
Yeah, Luke.
Hey.
As is the mother, so is the son. That's what you ought to preach.
No.
Instead of you putting your curses on me. You was glad enough to get me back home again. And Pat, to tend to this place and help raise that brat of yours. You fawned to him all them years. And how did he pay you back? Huh? He stole your money and he ran off and left you alone. And he left you just when he was about to turn 16 years old and he was old enough to help out around here. And he laughed at you, yes he did. He laughed at you when you took crazy and you cursed him. And he only laughed harder when you hung that stupid rope there and told him to hang himself on it if he ever came back again.
You'll see.
I suppose.
Yes, you'll see.
I'm a bigger fool to be arguing with a half-witted body. But I'm gonna tell you again. That Luke of yours, he ain't coming back. And if he does, he ain't the kind that's gonna hang himself. More's a pity. He's like her. He'd hang you more likely if he suspected you had money. So, I guess you might as well take down that silly rope you have tied there.
No.
Well, he's probably dead anyway by now.
No.
Them as bad as him comes to a sudden end. Land sakes, Pa, I'm arguing with your lunatic notions and supper ain't ready. Now come on and get your medicine. You can see no one's touched your old rope. Come on. You can sit and read your Bible.
No.
Do you hear me? Now I hope you ain't taken to one of those fits where you don't know nobody. Pa.
No.
Pa, you'll... Ow! That's what I get for trying to be kind to you, you old devil?
The sound of a man's footsteps is heard from outside, and Sweeney enters. He has evidently been drinking, and his face is flushed and set in an angry scowl.
Have you no supper at all made? You lazy slut! What you blabbering about?
It's all his fault. I was trying to get him to come home, but he's that sad I couldn't budge him. And he hit me in my arm with his cane.
You did he? I'll soon learn him better.
Don't touch him, Pat. He's in one of his moods. In one of your fits. You might kill him.
And good riddance.
Papist, pour out thy fury upon the heathen, and know thee not upon the families that call not on thy name, for they have eaten up Jacob and devoured him and consumed him and made his habitation desolate.
Spit curses on me till you choke. It's not likely that the Lord God will be listening to a wicked old sinner like you. What's got into him roaming up here? When I left for town, he looked like he was too weak to lift a foot.
Oh, it's the same crazy notion he's had since Luke left. He wanted to make sure his rope was still here.
Luke, he'll come back, Luke, and then you'll see.
Stop that, man! Cackling you, for the love of heaven! Oh, it's a great laughter I should be having at you. Mad as you are for thinking that thief of son of yours would come back to hang himself on account of your curses. It's 5 years since he's been gone. not a sight of him. And you cursing and calling down the wrath of God on him by day and by night. That shows you what God thinks of your curses. And him deaf to you.
It's no use talking to him, Pat.
Small doubt that Lucas, hung long since by the police, has come to no good end, that lad.
His eyes are on the rope.
I'll be pulling down that thing, so I will. And that old loon will stay in the house where he belongs then.
No!
Leave it alone, Pat. Now look at him. He's liable to hurt himself. Leave his rope be. It don't do no harm.
It looks ugly hanging there like an open mouth. Where's the child? Get her to take him out of this. I want a word with you, and he'll not be hearing. Mary! Mary!
A faint answering cry is heard, and a moment later Mary rushes into the barn.
You take your grandfather back to the house and see that he stays there.
And give him his medicine.
Do you hear me now? Oh, it's soft-minded she is, like you. I've always told you, and stupid. And you're not too firm in the head yourself at times. God help you. And look at him. It's the curse in the wits of your family, not mine.
You've been drinking in town, or you wouldn't be talking that way.
Ma, I'm scared.
Get up out of this, you old loon, and go with Mary. She'll take you to the house. Go on, man.
Oh Lord, thou hast seen my wrong, judge thou my cause.
Oh,
thou hast seen all their vengeance and all their imaginations against me.
Get up now.
Here,
Mary, take his hand, quick now. Lead him to the house.
Go on, Pa.
Render unto
I'll
them
come and get you
all
supper in a
recompense,
minute.
O Lord,
Shut up, you old
according to the work of their hands.
Come on, Grandpa.
bastard.
Give them sorrow of heart, they curse upon them, persecute and destroy them in anger.
Get out now and stop your cursing! Shut up, you lord quacking. And mind you, don't touch your child with your cane. I'll beat you to a jelly, old as you are. God, gone. What a snake's tongue he has in him. Come here, Annie, till I speak to you. When I saw him, sure enough. Who? Who? But Dick Weller, the lawyer, I went to see. And I found out what he was wishing to know. You said I'd been drinking? Well, which is true. But it was tall in the plan I made. I have a head for strong drink, as you know. But he hasn't. And the whiskey loosened his tongue. Till he told me all he knew.
He told you about Pa's will?
He did. For all the good it does us, he might as well be no wiser than he was before. Oh, God's curse on the old miser.
Well, what'd he tell you?
Not much at first. He's a cute one, and he'd be asking if he'd tell your own name if he could get it. His practice is all dribbled away from him lately on account of the drink, so I let on I was paying a friendly call. Haven't known him for years. Then I asked him out to have a drunk of drink, knowing his weakness, and we had rashes of it. And I'm paying for it. Then I come out with it straight and ask him about the will, because the old man was crazy on all the last legs, I told him. And he was the lawyer made out the will, and Luke was gone. So, he winked at me and he grinned. He was drunk by this time and said, "It's no use, Pat. He left the farm to the boy." "The hell with the farm," I spoke back. "It's mortgaged to the teeth. But how about the money?" "The money?" As he looks at me in surprise. "What money?" "The cash he has," I says. "You're crazy," he says. "There wasn't any cash, only the farm." "Do you mean to say he made no mention of money in his will?" I asked. God knocked me down with a feather. "He did not, on my oath," he says. "Now, What do you make of that? The old devil.
Well, maybe Walter was lying.
He was not. I could tell by his face. He was surprised to hear me talking of money.
But the thousands of dollars Pa got from the mortgage, just before that woman ran away.
And I've been slaving me hands off to pay the interest on.
Well, what could he have done with it? I mean, he ain't spent it. It was $20 gold pieces when he got it. I remember Mr. Keller at the bank telling me once.
Divil a penny he spent. You know as well as I do, if it wasn't for my hammering and sawing and nailing, he'd be in the poorhouse this minute. Oh, another madhouse more likely.
Do you suppose that harlot ran off with it?
I do not, and know better, and so do you. Don't you remember the letter she wrote telling him he could support Luke on the money he'd got from the mortgage she signed for him? For he made the farm over to her when he married her. And where do you suppose Luke got the $500 he stole? The owl loon must have had cash with him. Oh, and it's only about 5 years back.
Well, he's got to have it hid someplace in this house, most likely.
Maybe you're right. I'll dig in the cellar this night when he's sleeping. Oh, he used to be down there a lot, reciting scripture in his fits.
What else did Walter say?
Nothing much. Except that we should put notices in the paper for Luke. And if he didn't come back in 7 years from when he left, 2 years from now, that be, the courts would say he was dead and give us the farm. Devil, a lot of use it is by now. No money to fix it up. Himself ruined it years ago by selling everything to buy that slut new clothes.
Well, don't folks break wheels like his in the courts?
Walter said 'twas no use. The old devil was plain in his full senses when he made it. And the courts, they cost money.
So there ain't nothing we can do?
No. Except wait and pray for that young thief is dead and won't come back. And try and find out where is the old man has his gold hid, if he has it yet. Tickle by the neck. Choke him till he told it. He wasn't your father. If we only had 1,000, we'd stock the farm good and give up this dog as gave, and we'd both work hard with a man or two to help. In a few years, we'd be rich, which was always a pay and place in the old days.
Yep. Yes, it was always a good farm then.
He'll not last long in his senses, the doctor told me. His next attack will be very soon, and after it he'll be a real lunatic, with no claims to anything. Oh, if we only had the money. It would be the devil of all, the old fool should forget where he put it, and him take a leave of his senses altogether. Ah, well. I'll save what I can. At the end of 2 years, but good luck in the trade.
They are both startled by the heavy footfalls of someone approaching outside. A shrill burst of Mary's laughter can be heard, and the deep voice of a man talking to her.
It's Mary. But who could that be with her? It's not himself.
As he finishes speaking, Luke appears in the doorway, holding the dancing Mary by the hand.
Glory be to God, it's him!
It's Uncle Luke, it's Uncle Luke, it's Uncle Luke, it's Uncle Luke.
Sure, it's Luke. Back after 5 years bumming around the rotten old earth and ships and things. Paid off a week ago. Got busted up. And then took a notion to come out here. Bummed my way. And here I am. And you're both of you tickled to death to see me, ain't you? God, like hell. Don't you even want to shake fibbles with your dear old long-lost brother, Annie? I remember you and me used to get on so fine together. Like hell.
Keep your hands to yourself.
You ain't changed, that's sure. Only you're homelier than ever. How about you, Brother Pat?
I'd not lowered myself to take a hand of it.
Easy goes with that talk. I'm not so soft to lick as I was when I was a kid. And don't forget it.
Annie says to Mary, who is playing catch with her toy, which she had clutched to her hand.
Mary, what have you got there? Where did you get it? Bring it to me right this minute.
Oh, let her alone. What's biting you? There's only a silver dollar I give her when I met her in front of the house. She told me you was up here, and I give her that as a present to buy candy with. I got it in Frisco. Cartwheels, they call them. There ain't none of them in these parts I've ever seen, so I brought it along on the voyage.
I don't know or care where you got it, but I know you ain't come across it honest. Mary, you give it back to him right this instant. Do you hear me? Give him back the coin.
I was right when I said you ain't changed, Annie. You're stinking mean as ever. Quit bawling, kid. You and me will go out on the edge of the cliff here and we'll throw rocks like we used to. Remember?
Mary's tears immediately cease. She looks up at him with shining eyes and claps her hands.
Throw that. It's flat and it will skip.
That's the talk, kid. It's all it's good for, to throw away. Not burying it like your miser folks will have you. Here, you take it and chuck it away. It's yours.
Come on, Uncle Luke. Watch me throw it.
I'll step outside a second and give you two a chance to talk all the dirty things you're thinking about me. And then I'm going to come back and talk turkey to you, see? I didn't come back here for fun. And the sooner you get there through your beans, the better.
Come on and watch me.
All right, I'm coming.
He walks out and stands, leaning his back against the entranceway to the barn. Mary is about 6 feet beyond him on the other side of the road. She is leaning down, peering over the edge of the cliff, and laughing excitedly.
Can I throw it now? Can I?
Don't get too near the edge, kid. The water's deep down there, and you'd be a drowned rat if you slipped. You chuck it when I say 3. Ready now? 1, 2, 3.
She throws the dollar away and bends down to see if it hit the water.
I seen it splash. It's deep down there, ain't it?
Oh, you betcha it is. Now watch how far I can chick rocks.
He picks up a couple and goes to where she is standing. During the following conversation between Sweeney and his wife, Luke continues to play this way with Mary.
The devil. And here he is, flinging away dollars. The dirty thief.
Did you hear what he said? A thief like him ain't come back here for no good. Do you suppose he knows that the farm's being left to him?
How could he? And yet, I don't know. Oh, you best leave him to me to watch out for. It's small cinch you have to hide your hate from him. You're as loony as the rest of your breed. He needs to be blarneyed around to fool him and find out what he's wanting. Huh. I'll pretend to make friends with him. God roast his soul. And you'll run the house and break the news to the old man. For if he's seen him all sudden, like the little wits he has left would leave him. And if the thief could take the farm from us tomorrow, if himself turned a lunatic.
I'll tell him. A little at a time till he knows.
Be careful now, or we'll lose the farm this night. Did you see Luke, when he first came to us? He stood there. The noose of the rope almost touched his head.
I was wishing it was around his neck choking him. That's what I was. Hanging him, just like Papa said.
Shh! I might hear you. Go along now. He's coming back.
Let me throw another. Let me throw another.
Hey, going to the house? Do we get any supper? I'm hungry.
Yes.
Good work. Tell the old man I'm here and I'll see him in a while. He'll be glad to see me too. Like hell.
Let me throw another. Let me.
There's lots of rocks, kid. Throw them. Dollars ain't so plentiful.
No, I don't want to throw rocks. Let me throw another of them.
Let your uncle in peace, you brat. Run help your mother now, or I'll give you good hiding.
Mary runs out the door whimpering.
Ahoy there, what's this?
Let bygones be bygones. I'm harbouring no grudge again you these past years. You was only a lad when you ran away, and not to be blamed for it. Oh, I'd have taken your hand a while back and glad to, but for her, being with us. She is the devil's own tongue, as you know. But you can't forget the row you and her used to be having.
So that's how the wind blows. Well, I'll take a chance.
They shake hands and sit down by the table.
Oh. Will you have a taste? It's real stuff.
Oh. You betcha I will.
Oh. I wasn't wishing for herself to see it, or I'd ask you sooner.
Say, how's the old man now?
Oh, he's the same as ever. Older and uglier, maybe.
I thought he might be in the bug house by this time.
And yet not his foxy to pretend he's loony. But his wits is with him all the time.
Is he as stingy with his coin as he used to be?
If he owned the ocean, he would give a fish a drink. But I doubt if he's any money left at all. Your mother got rid of it, all of it, I'm thinking. He's only got the farm and that mortgaged. I've been paying the interest and supporting himself and his doctor bills by the carpentry work I've been doing this past 5 years.
You're slow.
Hey.
You ought to get wise to yourself.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Nothing.
He turns around and his eyes fix themselves on the rope.
What the hell? If that don't beat the Dutch.
What?
The old nut. That rope. Say, has he had that hanging there ever since I left?
Sure. And you think she'll be coming home to hang herself?
Oh, not this chicken. And you say he ain't crazy. Gee, that's good to keep. Too good to keep. I've got to have a drink on that. Yeah. Here's how, old chum. Whew. Say, I'd almost forgotten about that. Remember how hot he was that day when he hung that rope up and cussed me for pinching the 100? He was standing there, shaking his stick at me. And I was laughing because he looked so funny with that spit dribbling out of his mouth like he was a mad dog. And when I turned around and beat it, he shouted after me, "Remember when you come home again, there's a rope waiting for you to hang yourself on, you bastard!" What a swell chance. The old slave driver, that's a hell of a fine old man for a guy to have.
Oh, take a sup and forget it. 'Twas a long time past. Go.
But the rope's there, ain't it? He keeps it there. But I'll get back at him, all right. You wait and see. I'll get every cent of him he's got.
If he has a cent. I'm not wishful to discourage you, but...
He's got it, all right. You watch me. You country jays ought to wake up and see what's going on. Look at me, I was green as grass when I left here. But bumming around the world, being in cities and meeting all kinds. Keeping your eyes open. That's what'll learn you a cute trick or two.
No doubt, but you're right. Us country folks are stupid in many ways. We have no chance to learn the things a traveling lad like you've been knowing.
Well, you watch me, and I'll learn you. So you think the old man's flat broke, do you?
I do so.
Then you're simple. That's what's simple. You're letting him kid you.
If he has any, it's well hid, I know that. He's a sly old bird.
And I'm a slyer old bird. You hear that? I can beat his game anytime. You watch me.
Sweeney begins to show the effects of getting drunk.
He'd be the crafty one who'll find where he's hidden it, sure enough.
You watch me. I'll find it. I bet you anything I'll find it. You watch me. Just wait till he's asleep and I'll show you. Tonight.
There is a noise of shuffling footsteps outside, and Annie's whining voice is raised in angry protest.
Pasta!
A moment later, Bentley appears in the doorway, followed by Annie. He leans against the wall in an extraordinary state of excitement, shaking all over, gasping for breath, his eyes devouring Luke, from head to foot.
Bring forth the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring him a fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead, and he is alive again.
I couldn't do nothing with him.
And he's
When I told him to get back,
No.
there was no holding him. He was just frothing at the mouth till I let him out.
Shut your mouth!
You gotta
Go
look
look
after
after
him. Pat, if you want any supper, I can't be babysitting him and looking after world.
Shut your mouth.
Hello, old sport. Suppose you're tickled to pieces to see me. Like hell. I see you ain't lost the old stick.
No.
Many a crack on the nut I used to get with that.
Look at that, would you? A toad-faced old liar.
Luke grins at Sweeney and with a tolerant good humor says,
Say, watch this. On the level, I believe the old boy's glad to see me at that. He looks like he was trying to grin, and I've never seen him grin in my life. Hey, cut it out. I'm all here. You needn't worry. You needn't be scared I'm a ghost. Come on. Sit down before you fall down. You ain't got your sea legs working right. Squat here for a spell and get your wind. Have a drink to my making port. It'll buck you up.
Oh, be careful, Luke. It might likely end him.
Luke holds the bottle up to the old man's mouth, supporting his head with the other hand. Bentley gulps. The whiskey drips over his chin, and he goes into a fit of convulsive coughing.
Went down the wrong way, did it? I'll show you the way to do it. There you are, smooth as silk.
He must be glad to see you. Or he'd not drink. If he's get against it, he's been these past 5 years. And him cursing you day and night. I can't put head nor tail of it. Look out, he ain't meaning some bad to ye underneath. He's crafty at pretending.
What's he after now? He's letting on like he's lost his voice again. What do you want?
Bentley points with his stick to the rope. His lips move convulsively as he makes a tremendous effort to utter words.
Luke, rope, Luke, hang.
What did I tell you? It's to see you hang yourself, he's wishing.
Yes,
Down,
Luke, hang. Yes.
If that don't beat the Dutch, the old nanny goat. All right, old sport. Anything to oblige.
He takes the chair and puts it under the rope. The old man watches him with eager eyes.
And I'll be fully within your
Tries
place.
to smile. Luke stands on the chair.
All out for the big hanging of Luke Bentley by himself.
He puts the noose about his neck with an air of drunken bravado and grins at his father. The latter makes violent motions for him to go on.
Look at him, Pat. By God, he's in a hurry. Well, old sport, here goes nothing.
Luke, are you gone mad?
Stands staring at his father, who is still making gestures for him to jump.
Do you really mean it? That you want to see me hanging myself? I'll be damned. And I thought he was only kidding.
He removes the rope gingerly from his neck. The old man stamps his foot and gesticulates wildly, groaning with disappointment. Luke looks at his father for a second, then his face grows white with a vicious fury.
I'll fix your hash, you stinking old murderer!
He grabs the chair by its back as if he were going to crush Bentley's skull with it. The old man cowers on the bench in abject terror.
Luke, for the love of God!
You wanted to see me hanging there in real earnest, didn't you? You'd hang me yourself if you could, wouldn't you? And you, my own father, you damn son of a gun! You would you? I'd smash your brains out for a nickel.
Luke, look out! You'll be killing him next.
Get out of here. Get out of this before I kill you dead. Take him out of here, Pat. Take him out of here, I'll break every bone in his body.
Shh, don't be roaring. I got him. Come out of this now. Get under the house, hurry now. You made enough trouble for one night. Thank God he's off down to the house, scurrying like a frightened hare, as if he'd never had a kick in his leg in his life. Oh, he was moaning so loud you could hear him the long ways. It's a murderous old loon he is, sure enough.
Damn son of a gun.
Oh, I thought you'd be killing him that time with the chair.
Serve him damn right if I'd done it.
And you, laughing at him the moment sooner. I thought you was joking, you was.
So I was kidding. But I thought he was trying to kid me too. And then I seen by the way he acted, he really meant it. Ain't that a fine old man for him to have?
Oh, he's a mean old swine.
He meant it all right too. You should have seen him looking at me. Ain't he a hell of a nice old man for a guy to have, ain't he?
Oh, hush. It's all over now. Don't be thinking about it.
How can I help but thinking? And him, my own father. After me bumming and starving around the rotten earth and working myself to death on ships and things. And when I come home, he tries to make me bump off. Wants to see me a corpse. My own father, too. Ain't he a hell of an old man to have, the rotten son of a gun?
It's past and done. Forget it. Let's have a drop more. Where are we going to supper soon?
Oh, wow.
Thanks. But I'll tell you something you can put in your pipe and smoke it. It ain't past and done. And it ain't going to be. And I ain't gonna forget either. You can bet your life on that, pal. And he ain't gonna forget it. Not if he lives a million, not by a damn sight. I'll fix his hash. I'll get even with him, the old skunk. You watch me. And this very night, too.
How do you mean?
You just watch me, I tell you. I said I'd get even, and I will get even. The same night, with no long waits either. So you don't stand up for him, do you?
Oh, that's child's talk. It's not a day past I've not wished him in his grave.
Then we'll both get even on him. You and me.
Oh?
We're pals, ain't we?
Sure.
And you can have half of what we get. That's the kind of fella I am.
Surely.
That's fair enough, ain't it? I don't want no truck with this rotten farm. You can have my share of that. And I ain't made to be no damn dirt puncher. Not me. And I ain't gonna loaf around here more than I got to. And when I goes this time, I ain't never coming back. Not me. What I want's is cash. You can have the rotten farm for all of me. Regular coin. You can spin, not dirt. I want to show the gang a real time. And then ship away to sea again. Go bumming around. I want coin you can throw away. Same as your kid chucked $1 of mine overboard, remember? A real dollar, too. She's a sport, all right.
But, where'd you think to find his money?
Don't you fret. I'll show you. You watch me. I know his hiding places. I used to spy on him when I was a kid. Ma used to make me. And I've seen him many a time in his sneaking. He used to hide stuff from the old lady.
Oh.
What do you know about him? The mean skunk.
Oh, that was a long time back. You don't know.
Yeah, but I do know, see. He's got 2 places. One was where I swiped 100.
I'll not be there then.
No, but there's this other place. And he never knew I was wise to that. I left him clean, only I was a kid and scared to pinch more. So you watch me. We'll get even on him, you and me, and go halves, and you can start the rotten farm going again, and I'll beat it where there's some life.
But if there's no money in that place, what will you be doing to find out where it is then?
Then you and me'll make him tell.
Oh, I don't think it. 'Tis not him be telling.
Oh, say you're simple. You watch me. I know a trick or two about making people tell what they don't want to.
He picks up a chisel.
You see this? Well, if he don't answer up nice and easy, we'll show him. We'll get even on him, you and me. And he'll tell where it's hid. We'll just shove this into the stove till it's red hot, and take off his shoes and socks and warm the bottoms of his feet for him. He'll tell then anything we want him to tell.
But Eddie,
We'll shove a rag in her mouth so she can't yell. That's easy.
serve right. Heat up the hoofs of his feet, limping old miser. If you don't hurt him too much.
Oh, we won't hurt him. More than enough. I'll pay him back all right. He won't want no more people to hang themselves when I get through with him. I'll fix his hash. Come on, let's get to work. Sooner we start, the sooner we get rich.
Ma says supper is ready. I already had mine.
She comes into the room and jumps up trying to grab hold of the rope.
Lift me up, Uncle Luke. I want to swing.
Don't you dare touch that rope, do you hear?
I want to swing.
It's bad, kid. You leave it alone. Take it from me.
She'll get a whale of she'll get a good whaling if I catch her jumping on it.
Come on, pal. To hell with supper. We got work to do first.
And you stay here, do you hear, you brat? Till we call you. I'll skin you alive.
And tomorrow morning, kid, I'll give you a whole handful of them shiny, bright things you chucked in the ocean, and you can be a real sport.
Give me him now. Give me him now, Uncle Luke. Give me him now. Give me him
Can't
now.
be done, kid. Tomorrow. Me and your old man is gonna get even now. Gonna make him pay.
Hiss with your noise. You think she has no ears? Don't be talking so much. Come on now.
All right, I'm off with you. We'll get even, you and me. The damn son of a gun.
Mary skips to the doorway and peeps after them for a moment. Then she comes back to the center of the floor and looks around her with an air of decision. She sees the chair in under the loft and runs over to it, pulling it back and setting it on its legs directly underneath the noose of the rope. She climbs and stands on the top of the chair and grasps the noose with both her upstretched hands. Then with a shriek of delight, she kicks the chair from under her. The rope seems to part where it is fixed to the beam. A dirty gray bag tied to the end of the rope falls to the floor with a muffled metallic thud. Mary pushes herself along the floor and untying the string at the top she puts in her hand, she gives an exclamation of joy at what she feels. Giggling to herself, she gets to her feet and goes to the doorway, where she dumps what she has in her lap and a heap on the floor just inside the barn. They lie there in a little glittering pile, shimmering in the faint sunset glow of $50, $20 gold pieces. Mary claps her hands and sings to herself.
Skip. Skip.
Then she quickly picks up 4 or 5 of them and runs out to the edge of the cliff. She throws them one after another into the ocean as fast as she can and bends over to see them hit the water.
Skip.
Against the background of the horizon clouds, still tinted with blurred crimson, she hops up and down in a sort of grotesque dance, clapping her hands and laughing shrilly. After the last one is thrown, she rushes back into the barn to get more. She turns and runs out to throw them as the curtain falls.
everybody. We're late, and I just want to introduce very fast our actors. On my far right is Bill Salem. Tony Johnson. Keith Bradley. Christina Egley. Heather Hayes. From Isle, we have Janie McDonald. Kevin Steinke. James Williams. Diane Hamilton helped me with the directions. And I just want to say, again, the two marvelous actors from last night were Ron Shio, who played Bob and Tom Thompson, stand up, who played Eugene O'Neill.